So it looks like Damien is an electrician project manager, and he is actually asking you guys, would you recommend going for additional Revit and CAD 3D training? Right, it's a kind of a tough question because it really depends on, one, what type of data are you getting? Are you getting the Revit model? Or are you getting the CAD, right? I'll let you guys go from there. It's a tough one.
So for me, I've just learned on the job as I needed to. So I could open a model, and then once I'm in that model, I'm like, okay, how do I purge? I go Google, how do I purge? And then I find the plugin, here's a video on how to use it. So for me, it was so piecemeal that I didn't go through a formal training or have a manual. I just sort of learned on the job.
Well, and it is probably very focused in terms, you're not having to get in there and draw walls and start new projects and things like that. It's you almost need a Revit for FM course. So I know Linda was mentioned in there. I would probably say that there may be some courses from the client owner perspective, FM perspective, that might say this is how you just get in there and view a model, select elements, and even from a project architect or someone higher up on the team that isn't in Revit all the time, that needs to just go in and view things and mosey around. But of course, Google, like Melanie said, is always a wonderful resource. YouTube videos, all of that is free, right? So
yeah, I would also say, it depends on who you buy your software through. I would go back to them as a rep and ask if they offer additional training, because sometimes they can even come on site and help you out. I know we've done that and helped even some of our local consultants, at Penn State. State College is kind of a niche market, so we kind of wanted to build our local consultants up, and we offered even training on site at Penn State to help out with that.
Another question here. Looks like Sonia is asking, do you typically use Dynamo for Revit to speed up data import export tasks? Or any other tools, right? Maybe not Dynamo. There's all different types of ways to export data from Revit.
I've really wanted to dive into that myself. Like, I know there's so many different things you can use. But for me, my focus in recent years has really been on the CAFM IWMS side, supporting the database behind that. So really, I'm just pulling the data into that database and manipulating it there. So I haven't really had the opportunity to dig into Dynamo because I hadn't had the need yet.
Yeah, we tend to export before, a lot of our data gets inputted from the contractor. So it's usually in Excel at that point in time. Spreadsheet more than a database, but I could see the need, if you want to move things back and forth for using a Dynamo.
Yeah, and I will say maybe it kind of ties back to the NIBS and the Building Smart kind of initiatives of what is it that you're asking for, what is it that you're receiving from the design side of things, and how do we manage that, rather than I don't want to necessarily call it a free-for-all, but you having to go in there and ask for this data and get it manually, which is an awesome thing to be able to know how to do. I'm not discouraging that at all, but developing a standard so that you have the data in a manageable, usable way, like Melanie is saying, in those different systems that you're already using.
Yeah, we use it's a good point. We use a model checker too for just QC, of our data. And I think that's probably more important than even export options, is just to make sure that you don't have any blank fields and your characters are correct. And, we do a lot of model checking, just to make sure that's accurate. And we use Excel model checker for that.
And I know that also, sorry, please.
I was just going to throw out that I think Dynamo could probably be a really good option for people who don't have that enterprise system set up, because it's a much lower barrier to entry. Right? Mm-hmm. Like Archibus and Maximo, those are really expensive programs to implement. So for those small and mid-sized facilities, yeah, I would love to see somebody exploring that and sharing how it's working with them, because it would be a lot easier for your average FM to do that than to try and get funding for a CAFM system that the organization may not see value in.
Absolutely. And if, somebody knowledgeable enough that, could write these types of scripts or to be able to go in, you could almost develop a standard so that you're asking for the same data from every model, right? And maybe even build in a few variables so that, you know, for slightly different project types or slightly different campuses, slightly different buildings, whatever it might be, you may be able to alter those data retrieval points within the Dynamo script. Also, Ideate has BIMlink, which I'm sure is much less expensive than, you know, some of the FM tools that you guys are referencing. Has a wonderful way of exporting data. In terms of the model checker and as well as the Revit courses, I know CAD Micro, who sponsors this event, does offer a lot of those different tools. So I would definitely go to their website, check out what different products and services they offer, because they definitely can help you along those ways as well. Different tools and different things that can definitely help you in terms of setting standards and those types of maintenance tasks, right? Like I said, being able to go in and retrieve the same type of data over and over rather than having to recreate the reel every time that you're getting a model, right? So, or recreate a schedule, even in Revit, which sometimes can be very daunting for a new Revit user, I know. So, absolutely. Let's see here, going through the questions. Do you guys have any other, Melanie, where maybe do you see the industry going in terms of FM, data, BIM?
I'm just excited in recent years about how well we've been equipping like mobile workers. You know, our facilities guys used to have to run across campuses all day long, but if they can have a tablet because there's now Wi-Fi, or consumer level data collection, if you can take a photo of something and upload it to your CAFM system, if you can take a bunch of pictures and turn it into a rough model, just with a piece of equipment you're already familiar with. The scanning has gotten so much cheaper and easier to use to scan existing facilities if you don't already have a model or a drawing of it. So I just think that those things getting progressively easier to use and progressively cheaper makes them a lot more accessible to facility owners. So personally, that's the thing I'm most excited about.
Awesome.
I do have one caveat with scanning facilities. You know, something we learned the hard way is to make sure that you have the same organization scan and produce the model off of that scan, you know, because they'll know how to scan, how they want it organized and set them up that way. Because we did, you know, a couple of examples like, hey, give us the point clouds, you know, and we can share, and either we can model and, oh, we need more. Okay, go back. Oh, we need more scans. So I think that's a good thing to keep under one roof. If you do decide to scan as an owner or even as a company, you know, to build it in-house, I think we're seeing more and more of that, which is exciting.
I am a firm believer, going back to the BIM execution plan, that if you are going to contract out any type of Revit work, especially a survey or scan to BIM type of workflow, that you should definitely have a BIM execution plan of sorts. Look into level of accuracy, all of those different checkpoints. But yes, I think that going with one firm or maybe having a handful of firms that you work with that you're comfortable with is a great idea. And I know that there are quite a few out there, especially now with that technology really on the rise. And I would say that in terms of FM, that's one thing that really fascinates me, right? I would say when, kind of as Melanie was suggesting before, when they go in and they're scanning, you know, before the slab is poured, before the gyp is put up, so you're able to see all of those systems. You as a facilities manager could walk through with your HoloLens almost and be like seeing through the walls like Superman, right? And I think that would be so cool. I mean, like if you had a leak, you could really understand very quickly where all of that is coming from, and be able to you know, exclusively nail that down in a very, very quick way, and probably save tons of money in that regard, especially like Melanie was saying, with it when you have a concrete slab involved, right, where you're having to drill anything. Definitely would love to have something that tells me where all of that stuff is, right? Now, in terms of Penn State, I would assume that you guys have some really old data as well, right? I mean, you guys have been around for a really long time. You guys have been using BIM for a really long time. But how was that integration process, right? I would say that that's probably one of the harder things for, maybe it's like the question before, some of the smaller campuses who are trying to get into the BIM for FM, you know, smaller universities, what have you. It seems like such a huge step. You already have all of these, even, you know, the wheel of data that you were showing of all of the different systems and, you know, all those different data points. It seems kind of overwhelming. So how?
Yeah. So I'll let you guys in on a little secret, you know, when the key was separating the data from the model, right? Because the data is updated in our systems, you know, asset management, space management. Once that's separated, and even CAD plans, you know, CAD plans are updated in our space management system from a space perspective. You know, my secret is that our models, we don't have the capacity to keep all of our legacy models updated. So we strip them down, make them of a record model, you know, for basically architecture only. We do have some MEP systems in there, you know, some of our major components. If something changes on a large project, we will redo that section of the model, but it has to be a pretty substantial retrofit to redo our models. I've seen Western Michigan, you know, they've had some good examples of how to keep their models up to date, but it is potentially unsustainable. Nothing against them, and they've admitted it, with the amount of, you need to have a whole CAD group, you know, or a whole Revit user group within your organization to keep them up and live. Mm-hmm. And it's just something that wasn't, we had to do the value stream on that. Was it worth it for us to keep it? Was Russ Manning, one of our previous BIM managers, will always say, is the juice worth the squeeze? And unfortunately, it just wasn't for that.
Well, I know Melanie and I have had separate conversations about digital twins and, you know, other things where, I mean, I know you say as built to an architect and engineer, like, no, don't do that to us. You know? So what is the value? I mean, do you guys request as built? I would assume that you do. And, you know, I guess you would ask then, how pertinent is that as built if you're not maintaining it to a certain level?
I think asking for I think the preferred term is record drawing, so nobody tries to throw a lawyer at me. I think the thing with that is, like we just stated, we're stripping down the model to just what we need and then updating that thing that we need. You know, so whether we move a piece of ductwork or a branch, or we walk through and our maintenance guys notice, oh, that's not what it says on the blueprint, let me make a napkin sketch. Ideally, we're getting those napkin sketches and we're making the updates. I wouldn't be going back and updating a schedule. I wouldn't be updating the length of the pipe run or the materials used or adding sections and details. I would just be updating like the basic size of it. Or when I change walls in a Revit model, I just change the wall. I don't go in and look at the family type and see what it's composed of. So like the basic structure is going to be there, the basic components are going to be there. It's just not going to be done to the precise level of detail that we originally received.
Right, okay. So we do have a few questions here. We actually have Adam Ridge. Adam, can you hear us? Hopefully Nick is in the background doing his awesome. Hey, Adam, where are you coming from today?
Raleigh, North Carolina.
Welcome, welcome. So what's your question for our guys today?
Yeah, so I was just wondering, with all this new technology and this new development with BIM for FM, which areas are you seeing the largest return on investment? And what areas, did anything surprise you now that you have all this data? Were there areas that you're seeing return on investment that you didn't anticipate when you went into it?
I can start, Melanie, if you want. So, you know, one of the objectives we had at Penn State was becoming more efficient in maintenance, you know, and reducing through attrition, you know, the size of our maintenance technician group. Just being honest, you know, we had to get more efficient. You know, we never knew what from an education facility what was going to come, and we've actually done that. You know, our preventative maintenance has increased. our corrective maintenance has decreased, which means that we're analyzing our assets and we're seeing return on that investment to the point where we're staying ahead of our maintenance requirements, and systems aren't failing where we have to correct them. That was pretty surprising how quickly that started to occur, because technicians bought into it. Nobody lost their jobs, but they saw where areas where we were inefficient, they didn't have the information they needed to do their jobs. They were excited and bought into, this entire, I won't say necessarily technology, but more in lines of information at their fingertips. When you put a model in front of them, they get a little bit overwhelmed, but give them an O&M manual and data that they can use, and they'll go crazy. They'll do whatever for you.
I definitely agree with that. I think for me as a document manager first, the thing that I liked most about it was sometimes when you would get those CAD files, they would be broken down into smaller files, and then when you would put them side by side, they wouldn't line up. Or when you would be chasing, like you've got a dozen pipes going down a hallway. If you work in a medical facility, those pipes are really important and the valves are really important. So you have to make sure they're right. And when you're walking down a hall and all of a sudden the label switches from, oxygen to condensate return, like halfway down the hall, you're like, oh, great. Now you have to go get your little isolation unit, get a ladder, stick your head above the ceiling and figure out which one is actually in which place, and then go move all the labels. So also the references to sections and details, then when you flip to that because you need it for a repair and there's no correlating section or detail, all of those little frustrations that were such a time suck that take you away from actually managing the facility or improving the older data, that's the part that got me most excited and freed up the most amount of my time.
I want to continue the conversation, but I also want to be respectful of people's time. So we'll have some more questions live, but before we allow people to leave if they need to, which once again we want to respect, we do have a prize today, and we've decided to shift our prize from the background to actually survey participants. So we have randomly selected a past survey participant, and today Rebecca Fisher is getting a $25 Amazon gift card. So thank you, Rebecca. We really do appreciate you participating in our survey, as well as everybody else. For those of you who have to drop off, please make sure that you do fill out our survey. We do really, truly value those. And as well as you may win a prize next time, because that's where we're going to shift our movement for the prizes. So thank you so much. Thank you, Melanie and Craig. Thank you, everybody, for your questions today. And we will see you next month. I'm going to stay on, ask a few more questions, but thank you so much. So Heather Worrell, another Raleigh Revit user coming from us today, has a few questions. Can you hear us, Heather? Hopefully you have a moment that you can stay on with us to ask your question. Maybe not. She may have needed to leave.
I'm here.
Oh, yes. Yay. Hey, Heather.
Sorry, I was trying to get the message across that I needed to be unmuted.
Oh, too bad
Hurry,
there wasn't
Nick,
a
hurry.
background contest. Look at that.
I know. I was like,
Sorry,
I'm going to win
Heather.
today.
You're always a winner in my book.
All right. If you haven't seen Kipo and the Age of the Wonder Beast, I highly recommend it, just for these lumberjack cats that are behind me. My question was on the space management side, like getting to some more maybe live data, like feeding in to the management occupancy sensors, and then I started also, when I was thinking about it, like daylighting sensors, all that stuff. Are you guys seeing anywhere that is being used on your side? And even now, like with COVID, air quality sensors, all that, all that stuff, that would be really great. I would think, especially on a university side, to kind of see, how your spaces are being used, and if they can be used in a different way. Do you think it's coming? Is my other question.
Do you have an answer there, Craig?
Well, I can speak quickly to occupancy and then probably more like, so yeah, we keep track of in our space management system, which is on a platform called Penbay Innovation Solutions. Specifically our use of our classrooms. You know, we 2 years ago, we centralized general purpose classrooms and really analyzed how they're being used specifically to the maximum occupancy. With COVID now, that's cut in, you know, 40-person classroom fits 4 people now. So now we're looking at how we can use them for online education, joining Zoom meetings. So we've kind of put them in Zoom rooms and just making sure that they're occupied, and we do see that. But I'll probably speak more to sensor data from vibration. You know, we've implemented a vibration sensor program, and that's been really beneficial. That kind of goes with the predictive maintenance to look in what our assets are doing, and we record a lot through Raspberry Pis, you know, either vibration or temperature changes for bearings, motors, and we're getting that data and analyzing and putting preventative measures out ahead of time.
So I don't have an answer to that, but my coworker Alan is here, or at least he was. Is Alan still here to provide any insight? Or did he have to drop off already? I can't see.
Might have to be unmuted. What's his full name?
Alan Engel?
He does not appear to be on
We
right
don't
now.
see an
must
Alan,
have dropped off.
unfortunately. Well, we have another question. From a facilities manager's perspective, what could a contractor or designer do to add the most value during project delivery? Coming from Todd Povell.
That's a good question. You know, I like to hear that question. You know, I'd probably say keep the end users involved, and that's not just the owner representative. You know, I showed that example of doing a virtual walkthrough with our maintenance technicians and going through ladders to roofs, thinking about safety, thinking about ergonomics, you know, show that we care about our maintenance technicians or our facility managers who usually don't get a say on these projects, and schedule that time, I think pays huge dividends. It's in design and leads to good construction.
Yeah, I was just going to point back to Craig's slide where, you know, he talked about sit down, talk to the owner, walk through the process. And obviously that owner is not going to be necessarily the project manager or someone on the project team, but, you know, that subject matter expert. So making sure you have a sit down conversation with them to see what they're really using it.
We will go ahead and wrap up with that.